Hello everybody, Jason here from the At the Coalface podcast. I've created a new sub-series called Mentoring Moments, and Mentoring Moments is composed of clips taken from my one-on-one and group mentorship sessions where we discuss e-commerce, digital, retail, and so much more. Hopefully you get a lot out of this. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. I'm here again with Ashley on one of our one-to-one mentorship calls, and she's got some really good items on her agenda for us to go through this week. And I thought that they were so good, in fact, and so broadly applicable that we would just start recording and start talking and start chatting through the agenda, and we'll see how much we can get through. You've got about 10 items, I think, on the agenda overall, Ashley. So I don't know how much we'll be able to get through, but we'll try to rip through as much as we possibly can this week. And then in a couple weeks' time, anything we can't get through today, we'll get through on the next session. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
No worries. Now, this is a takeoff, this first couple here. This is an extension and an enhancement of the discussion that we were having a few weeks back about you looking at your own e-commerce startup, your own e-commerce store, your own e-commerce D2C store where you were looking at, and we had talked about previously, some of the new product development lifecycle, what that looks like, how you can go about getting some agreements in place with contract manufacturers, contract developers, all that sort of stuff. And so to set the scene, a lot of this feels like this is a natural extension of that initial conversation around wanting to do your own thing for a change, as opposed to helping other people grow their websites and grow their businesses and helping with their digital marketing. Now it's, hey, I want to turn this inwards and I want to have a good crack at this and use my own skills to build my own thing. Would that be a fair assessment?
100% correct.
Nice. Absolutely love it. And your first question on the agenda for this week is creating a website on Shopify. Would you do it yourself, or would you suggest to hire for, if you did hire, or for what tasks, what projects, and why? And I would say that especially as a startup, Shopify is one of those rare platforms that is largely DIY in the sense that you can set up the platform, you can get your dedicated domain set up very easily on the platform, you can get your catalog loaded into the platform yourself. It's very much designed to be largely a self-service platform, at least for phase one. And there's hundreds and hundreds of themes out there that you can apply. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. Even the good, high quality paid themes are usually under $200. And so the ability to apply a theme, and then all of a sudden, once you install that theme, you now have editable sections within that theme that are editable through the theme editor in admin, so that you can tweak it, customize it, personalize it, make it your own. I think that also the ability to install the vast majority of common apps easily with one click, either as a trial or as a permanent subscription to those apps. Almost all of those are super easy to install. They're super easy to configure. They don't really require a developer. Certainly, if you want some custom front-end logic, or you want some custom front-end experiential stuff, or you want stuff that really requires some knowledge of Liquid, which is the underlying theme language of Shopify, then absolutely, that's the point where you're potentially going to want to try to find maybe a freelancer. As a startup, you're going to want to keep costs low. So whether that be finding a freelancer on LinkedIn or freelancer on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever the case may be, there's hundreds and hundreds of Shopify freelance developers out there. You'll get mixed results with working with a freelancer. Generally, once you go with a qualified and certified agency and partner, an agency partner of Shopify, that's when you start getting guaranteed kind of, or more guarantees of quality, because they have to qualify to be a agency. And then once you get up to Shopify Plus certified agencies, that's top tier of Shopify agencies out there. Those are the ones you're going to be paying the most to for custom development work, maintenance work, etc. And obviously, one of the other benefits of going with an agency is the fact that you then have them managing your version control. You have them managing your deployments. You have them managing your code base. You have them managing, making sure that all of the apps play nice together and that any customizations on the front end are managed through throat to choke, so to speak. So there are benefits absolutely in agencies, no question about that. I've run agencies, and the vast majority of the clients I work with, in fact, in every single case, the merchants that I work with would need an agency partner if they don't already have one, or they would already have one when they come to me when they're looking at scoping out new projects. But then these projects would be a minimum of around 100 grand. But these development projects would be around 100 grand. They would have usually some form of custom integration with back office systems and the like, ERPs, PIMs, CDPs, etc. And so that's when these businesses are doing multiple millions of dollars a year. They're usually doing somewhere minimum or north of $10 million a year in revenue. Then all of a sudden, it makes absolute sense to go through an agency for all of your development requirements. But as a startup, Shopify is just one of those platforms that can be largely self-service. You may want a freelancer to do some tweaks, some little things that require some coding in Liquid or require some custom sections within the theme that you then can modify and maintain from there and upload content against from there. Then certainly finding a freelancer for some little pieces is probably easier on an ad hoc basis than working with an agency as part of phase one. Save your money for your marketing. Go ahead and set up, because at the end of the day, the core functionality of being able to load your content, being able to load your products, being able to set up your payment gateway with Shopify Payments or Stripe or whoever you end up going with, that's all easy. I can set up a brand new Shopify store from scratch and make it transactional, usually within 2 to 4 hours worth of configuration time. So it's literally that fast. It's literally that easy. It is literally, and the help documentation for Shopify is very good, similar to the level of help documentation with BigCommerce. They both are very good. So basically, if you want to know how to do something in Shopify, you type that thing in, followed by Shopify in Google, and the help docs for that function will pop up. You know, how to load products into the catalog, how to upload images, or how to add product tags, or how to add meta fields. All those things it's simply a Google away. And usually within the help docs of Shopify, there are also videos to show you how to do specific tasks, admin tasks within Shopify. So do I think that as part of phase one, as a new startup on Shopify, that you need an agency or a freelancer to get up and running? Absolutely, I don't think that. I think that you can absolutely do it on your own. And in fact, I would encourage new business owners to usually do it on their own so that they can understand how Shopify works at a real, true nuts and bolts level. So that way, if and when you do hire a freelancer, or if and when you do hire an agency, you can give them the appropriate guidance and monitoring about what they're actually doing for you, so that you can ensure that they're actually providing you good value for money for their services, because you have done a lot with Shopify by that stage, and you will understand Shopify pretty intimately by that stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It makes sense. I guess one question that popped up during this conversation is, if I am going to create this by myself, which I totally plan on doing, but if I am going through this process, is there anything that I can possibly really screw up by doing it myself? Like any
Not
part of
really.
it?
No,
Okay.
not really. It's almost, not to say that you're an idiot, but I oftentimes use the term about Shopify that it's pretty idiot proof, in the sense that it's all not setting up servers. It's a SaaS platform. It's a subscription platform. It's very difficult to screw it up. If you install a bunch of apps and then you end up uninstalling those apps for whatever reason, they can leave little snippets of code behind in the Liquid templates, in the Liquid theme files, that may have to be manually removed. That's about the only downside to testing a whole bunch of different apps, is that when you uninstall them, it might uninstall the core functionality, but it won't necessarily uninstall all the Liquid theme changes that those apps make, particularly if they affect the front end experience. And so there may have to be a little bit of manual review of the theme, so that it doesn't slow the theme down, so it doesn't burden the theme with snippets of code and JavaScript, etc., that you're not actually using anymore. So that's where a really good either freelancer or agency can help you over time. If you notice your site slowing down, if you notice it just underperforming, that's when someone that can do a code review of the site can make sure that you don't have cruft in there that's built up over time with trialing different apps and then uninstalling them and having little code snippets left behind in the code. That's a pretty common thing that you may need a little bit of help with. But other than that, it is pretty difficult to screw up Shopify to the point where installing a new theme generally will resolve any issues, or reinstalling theme will usually at that point clear most of the issues out and you'll be back up and running pretty much straight away. So there's very little that you can do in Shopify that can't be undone, is what I'm saying. Particularly if you have a really small catalog, which most startups do. They don't have hundreds of thousands of products. They don't have tens of thousands of products. They have tens of products. Usually when they start out. And as a result of that, it's not like it configure products in a certain way that it can't be undone. Or if you configure your collections in a certain way, that can't be undone. And in fact, up until the point where you've got tens of thousands of products and you need something like a PIM system, usually most merchants will use Shopify as their PIM, as their product information management platform. They'll be doing everything inside Shopify, including adding all of the attributes, all of the product tags, all of the descriptions, etc. They'll be doing that directly inside Shopify, either in admin or via CSV upload into admin with all of their catalog data. So the reality is that it's all doable within Shopify, and it's very difficult to screw something up to the point where it's not fixable. It's always fixable.
Gotcha. And so I'm definitely not a coder. Like, it's just not my forte. So if I were to hire a freelancer on Work or Fiverr or find someone on LinkedIn, like to specifically look at the code, is there a specific job title you would look for? Shopify developer, or
Yeah, Shopify freelancer, Shopify developer, Shopify partner, anything like that is going to really turn up what you're looking for. You can also, on LinkedIn, you could just put a post up saying, hey, need a little bit of help, one-off help with my new Shopify website. Who do you recommend as a freelancer that does good work, does good quality work? And then you'll generally get a lot of recommendations from people who have worked with freelancers. I don't work with freelancers because the type of clients that I work with tend to be larger clients that need full-blown agency-level services and agency-level guarantees and partner-level guarantees. So they actually need certified Shopify partners as opposed to purely a freelancer. Like I said, when you're first starting out, just simply trying to find a good freelancer that comes recommended by somebody who's had good experiences with them, or at least has good reviews on something like Fiverr or Upwork, making sure, just do your due diligence on them, have a few conversations with them, get them to share with you a couple of the websites that maybe they've developed or contributed to developing, making sure that the site functions well, that it doesn't have any obvious issues in the customer experience layer. So that's where I would be recommending you look, is to get some recommendations from people that have worked with a freelancer, and ideally English would be a first language. That's a challenge in some instances because there are some very good freelancers from all over the world, but sometimes communication can be difficult. Sometimes finding someone in your time zone can be difficult. Take all of those things into account, making sure that when you communicate a requirement to them, they can actually fully understand it and there won't be any things lost in translation would be the only thing I'd be cautious of.
Yeah, for sure. And then one last question, just on the development side of things. Shopify is natively mobile optimized, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the vast majority of the off-the-shelf themes out there are mobile responsive anyway. And so they already have port-specific, the ability to be fully scalable regardless of viewport. And so that's really, it would be extremely rare if you didn't find a theme. It would be extremely rare if you found a theme that was not mobile responsive. They're all mobile responsive. Now, whether they have, there's responsive and then there's responsive. So some of these themes will look better, for example, on a mobile handset than they would on a tablet, for example. And so it really does depend on how many mobile breakpoints they've designed for, or how many mobile viewports they've designed for. All of your modern themes should be fully viewable and fully usable on any viewport, any device, any screen footprint, any resolution.
Well, that's good to know. Because I know I've worked with other CMSs that weren't necessarily responsive. So I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, and I think that when mobile responsiveness became the norm as opposed to having a separate mobile dedicated site or subdomain, I think that over the last couple of years, pretty much every single theme that has come out for every major e-commerce platform is now mobile responsive. And that's true of WooCommerce, BigCommerce, Shopify, Magento. Doesn't really matter. Their mobile responsiveness is the default way of designing themes now. So you should be pretty safe so long as the theme has been released within the last say 3 years.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. Your next question on the agenda for today is what resources, books, websites, courses, etc. would you recommend for a new entrepreneur starting their e-commerce business? That's a very interesting question. There are a few. If you go and you look at some of the online learning websites, you will find a variety of different courses that you can take and different sets of learning that you can do. I haven't taken any of them for the obvious reason, so I'm probably not necessarily the best person to talk to about which of these classes, which of these courses, which of these programs are going to be best for you. But there is a gentleman on LinkedIn, and I'm just going to find him now here. If you look up a gentleman on LinkedIn by the name of Michael Vax, VAX is his surname, and he's got a form or a service called Commercials Digital, and I'm pretty sure he has an online training program for all of the basics, the foundational stuff to do with ecom. So it's basically, if you go to his website, which is digital.com, e-commerce training and consulting for businesses building commerce of tomorrow. So he does offer a training program, group training customized for your business, digital commerce for your business. So I have seen people on LinkedIn talking about his training, saying it lists it here, it says enroll in the course, and it takes you to teachable.com. So that's one of those online marketplace platforms for digital learning. And as you can see here, he lists his course there, and it's 828 euros. So if you want to reach out to him or you want to check out his website, I get nothing from this. I have no affiliation with him. I had nothing to do with creating the course, etc. But I have seen a few people comment on LinkedIn that his course is very good. And his website is commerceisdigital.com. So I'd go and check that out. You can check out there's a whole bunch of online learning marketplaces, all the way from Masterclass to a whole bunch of other online learning platforms and marketplaces out there. So I would just go and I would look at the reviews of those courses. I would just look at reviews and see what the feedback is on those, because those marketplaces always provide the opportunity for people to provide reviews on those. For me, I'm really mostly self-taught, and I haven't done a lot of shared learning. I'm mostly autodidactic, and so I'm probably not the right person to tell you, okay, go and do this course and learn this thing. But it also comes down a little bit to where you're trying to learn more about the marketing side, community building side, social media side, technical side. It really does depend on the specialization that you want to have. I have a pretty hardcore specialization in tech and ops, and I'm not going to, because that's something I specialize in and have done for a long time, that's not something I'm going to go and try to take a course on, because you have to really learn by doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll check out the resources by Michael Vax for sure.
Cool. Sounds good. Now, the next question you have here, when is an ERP system needed when starting an e-commerce business? What ERP systems or versions are best? Very good question. I think that with the combination of systems and technologies that are available today, you can get away with not having an ERP for longer than perhaps you would have been able to in the past. And so really, at the end of the day, what an ERP is going to provide you is basically a larger scale, more comprehensive version of an accounting platform, like a Xero, like a QuickBooks, etc. So when you're first starting out, you're probably going to be absolutely fine with something like a Xero or a QuickBooks. You don't need an ERP at that stage, because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to track your inwards goods, you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to collect payments, you're trying to pay your taxes, you're trying to really just manage the financial aspects of your business. You're usually not at a scale yet where you need to manage manufacturing, or you need to have all of the complex multi-subsidiary financials that a ERP could provide, or you're not looking necessarily for the CRM module inside of an ERP, which is how you get most ERPs come with a CRM module. So I would say that you probably don't need an ERP nowadays as soon as you would have in the past, because modern platforms like Xero and QuickBooks, they do more than they used to do. And so you're trying to make sure that you can generate a PO via your generate a purchase order, make sure that you're getting all of your sales orders back down into I use Xero, for example, for what I do. And I have Squarespace connected via the Make integration middleware platform, to where when orders come through Squarespace, they automatically integrate down into Xero. And so the invoice is created within Xero. The customer is dynamically and automatically created within Xero. And really, for me, that's completely enough. It allows me to pay my taxes. It allows my accountant to have a place where he can log in and he can process my end of year returns. He can process my GST. He can process all those things. So I think so long as you use a mainstream bookkeeping platform like a Xero, like a QuickBooks, even maybe a basic MyOb, so long as you can get that integrated in with, say, for example, with Shopify, which there's A2X, there's a couple of off-the-shelf middleware platforms that automatically connect Shopify to these accounting packages and bookkeeping platforms. You can also, if you want something that's a little bit custom in terms of integration, then that's possible as well. So you could, for example, do basic inventory keeping in something like a Xero or QuickBooks. You could have that inventory automatically integrated up Shopify with a custom integration via the Make middleware platform, for example. And it'll probably cost you less than $1,000 to have that integration built and customized using one of those middleware platforms by a developer of that platform. So, for example, I worked with a Make partner because the out-of-the-box integration between Squarespace and Xero using the Make platform, it didn't do all the things I wanted it to do. It didn't, for example, if the customer was an international customer, I wanted them to be mapped to a specific GL account within Xero. If they were a domestic customer and in other words, they needed to be charged GST, etc., then I needed that to be created in a certain way inside Xero when the customer was created. I needed certain account settings to be applied dynamically based on where the customer was located or what country they were in. So there was a few different things I needed to have customized. And so I just reached out to a Make developer on the Make website who's a Make partner. And for less than $1,000, I think it ended up costing about $750. I was able to get the integration customized to do exactly what I wanted to do and work exactly how I wanted it to work. But there's some off-the-shelf integrations like A2X in the Shopify App Store that can allow you to integrate with most mainstream bookkeeping platforms and accounting platforms. But then if you want something a little bit more custom, that's totally possible too. But I think until you get to probably with a combination of something like a Gorgeous for your operational help desk, which is where you would normally, a CRM would normally, for e-commerce, a CRM is an operational platform. So it's usually used as a help desk platform, right? Whereas nowadays, I think you can get away with using something like Gorgeous as your help desk. So that becomes effectively your CRM from an operational perspective, from a customer service perspective, from a help desk perspective, from a live chat perspective. It all goes into Gorgeous, and you have all your responses centralized through Gorgeous. From an accounting perspective, you can use something like Xero or QuickBooks. And then I think from a fulfillment perspective and being able to fulfill orders easily, you can do one of two things really as a startup. You can either work with a local 3PL that will download all of your orders from Shopify, because almost every single 3PL out there has an out-of-the-box connector between their WMS platform and Shopify. Or you can set up, again, a custom integration using something like Make that exports all of your orders on a daily basis via a cron job to CSV, and then they will usually accept a CSV of orders to fulfill on your behalf. If you have your own warehouse, let's say you've got a small local, like when I had my own e-commerce pure play, we had our offices that there was in an industrial part of Auckland, there is a whole bunch of offices combined with very small warehouses. So they're basically an office space with a warehouse space side by side as part of one unit that you rent. And so we used that, and we operated out of that, and we had our pick, pack, dispatch process largely automated. And so we would just scan the orders, we would scan the tracking details, and that would automatically update the order in the e-commerce platform, which would trigger off the transactional email to the customer saying that it had been shipped, linking through to their tracking detail. Nowadays, and we had to custom build that. Nowadays, there's platforms like Ship-it or Starship It or local courier aggregator platforms that basically do that, automate that pick, pack, dispatch process for you by automatically downloading your orders from Shopify into their platform, printing the label, automatically connecting to the courier to lodge the consignment with the courier, pulling down the tracking details from the courier, and basically lodging the consignment with the courier to be picked up from you to ship out. So that's probably the easiest way to start out, is with a lightweight bookkeeping system or accountancy platform combined with Shopify, combined with a courier aggregator, a shipping management platform. And then obviously you don't need the shipping management platform if you're working with a 3PL to do all the shipping on your behalf and warehousing on your behalf, but you will need a shipping aggregator and shipping platform if you're managing your own warehouse and you're manually managing that warehouse. Then once you're up to probably, I would say, once you get up to about $5 million a year, that's when it starts to make sense to start looking at ERP, because of the additional functionality that ERPs bring to the table. But realistically, nowadays, you can get away with a very lightweight setup for longer than ever before.
Gotcha. Cool.
Make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Moving on to the next one that you had here, merchandising best practices and resources. Wow, that's a pretty broad one. It really does come down to what you mean by merchandising. It also depends on how large your catalog is. It depends on how complex your products are. It depends on a lot of factors, right? And how you merchandise your product. But what I would say is that comprehensive descriptions, really good imagery, really good videos of your products, if it warrants a video, really good structured product data, product tags, really good product categorization. Obviously, if you've got a really small catalog, then it's not that difficult. But where you start to get up over, say, 100 products, that's when merchandising becomes even more important. Your categorization becomes more important. Your product descriptions become even more important, because now all of a sudden maybe customers are trying to differentiate between similar products on your website that have different price points. Thinking about the parent-child relationship of products, meaning if you've got a product with multiple variants, so you've got the same product but you got multiple sizes, or you got multiple colors, or you got multiple designs, then instead of having each of those products be a single standalone product in the catalog, there's pros and cons to having each of those variants as individual products in the catalog versus variants on a single product page. So Shopify has the ability to have 3 levels of lineage, as it were, to associate with variants of a product. For example, if you were selling t-shirts, you might have size, color, and design as being the 3 layers of selecting a variant on a product page. You've got to select the size, you've got to select the color, and you've got to select the design to define which variant that you are buying on a product page. So thinking long and hard about the pros and cons of that might make it easier for the customer to shop. But then again, if you've got a small catalog and you break up all those variants as individual single products, then that gives you greater representation for long tail SEO in the search engines, right? Because you got more product pages, you got more products in your catalog. So there are pros and cons to different approaches to merchandising. There's also thinking about, okay, do I put products in my category tree? Do I put products in the lowest level leaf node, meaning let's say you've got category, subcategory, and subcategory. So you've got a maximum of 3 layers deep in your category structure. Do I put products in as deep of a category as I can get them and only have them there? Or do I have them both in the deepest category that I can get them, as well as all parent categories? So do I show them on all of the categories in the tree that lead to the deepest point where they would live, in the most granular category that they would live? So there's just a few different things to consider, and it does come down to there's always going to be a little bit of overlap between your product attributes and your product categorization. That's always going to be the case. so that if you've got a large catalog with many categories, then within the categories, you're going to want to be able to set up filtration based on specific product attributes to narrow down. If you got a sub category that's got 500 products in it, that's going to be pretty overwhelming. But if you've got product tags that allow filtering within that category very rapidly based on the attributes of the product, then that's going to make it easier for the customer to find. So you're always trying to think, whenever you're doing your merchandising, you're trying to think about, how can I remove friction from the buying journey? How can I make the process of identifying products, finding products, searching for products on my website, whether that be through category structure, product attributes, site search, how can I make the finding of products that are appropriate to that given customer as easy and frictionless as possible? How can I make it easy for them to find, add them to the cart, and check out with those products? That is the goal. That is the primary goal of all of your merchandising efforts, is how can I remove any need to contact me and ask me a question around the product? That is the idea. It is, how can I make the entire browsing, searching, finding, adding to cart, checking out products, how can I make that as easy as possible without them needing to ask me any questions manually? Meaning, they don't have to email me, they don't have to live chat me, they don't have to ring me. All of the information about our products in detail are found on the website in the most easy to digest way possible. So a little bit of it is going to be trial and error. And if you start getting a whole lot of questions about a product or about a range or about a category of products or about your shipping pricing, or basically if you get a whole lot of questions about a specific subject, it means you are not providing enough information on the website for them to make a self-service buying, self-guided buying decision. So that would be my generic viewpoint on merchandising, is to provide as much information as possible in as easy to digest a way as possible, to where the customer doesn't have to contact you to be able to make a purchasing decision.
That makes sense. Yeah, merchandising is not really my forte, so it's one of those areas that I'm gonna have to learn as I go and do a lot of researching. Yeah.
Yeah, and the key thing to understand is that there's two primary types of product data that you will be loading on your website around your products: structured and unstructured product data. And understanding how those impact your merchandising and impact the customer journey is really important. Unstructured data is any data that applies to only one product in your catalog uniquely. So in other words, a description, a free form text description of a product, that is unstructured data. Structured data is any piece of data that can be applied to at least two or more products in your catalog. So, in other words, color is usually a piece of structured data. You might put the color of something in the description, but for example, the color red might be applicable on a fashion store. The color red might be applicable to more than one product, so two products or more. So that you will want to turn into structured data via, for example, product tags as a color product tag: red, blue, green, black, right? Those are structured color product data that will be applied to more than one product. And the purpose of having structured data in the site is multifold. Not only does it help the customer pick products that are appropriate for them, but it also helps them to facet and filter on a category page, for example, by, okay, I only want to see all the red products on this page. Unless you have that loaded as structured product data that then can be used as tags and filters and faceting within across the website, then what you're trying to do is you're trying to apply as much structured product data to every product as you possibly can, in addition to the free form unstructured product data, say, for example, in a long description, so that the customer can more easily identify products that are best fit for them. And you can merchandise that information in unique ways. So, for example, when I was working at HealthPost, we had a huge amount. I'm talking probably 50 different structured product attributes against products. And we would merchandise those based on those attributes. So not only was the customer able to filter categories by those structured product attributes, But then when a specific attribute was applied, for example, that a product was vegan, or a product was vegetarian, or a product was halal, or a product was organic, or a product was whatever, right? There was all these attributes that we could apply to products. And then based on those attributes, we could have, for example, for certain attributes, we had clip art to denote and merchandise that attribute. And that whenever we applied that attribute to a product, that clip art would automatically be merchandised on the product page underneath the product images. It would show what that attribute was visually, right? And then it would allow them to click on that piece of clip art, and it would take them through to an information page about that attribute. For example, if a product was sugar-free or artificial sweetener-free, we would define through a visual attribute what that meant, and then they could click through that attribute to an attribute page with more detail about that attribute and what it meant to us as a brand. So if we said artificial sweetener free, we would list the 15 artificial sweeteners that it was free of, for example. We would say, okay, if you see this icon, it means that it's artificial sweetener free, and to us as a brand, that means it doesn't have one of these 15 artificial sweeteners in it. It doesn't have sucrose. It doesn't have sucralose. It doesn't have all these different sweeteners in it. It doesn't have what's the chemical name of NutraSweet? I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, you get the idea. So the idea was to apply all of these structured data attributes to products and then merchandise those attributes in unique ways across different points of the website. Make sense?
And were there any apps that you use to do that? Especially the icon where you can filter out like the different attributes. That's going to be really important with my particular product.
Yeah, so filtering on categories is now native in Shopify. It didn't used to be. You used to have to use an app. You used to have to use an app like Filter and Search. Now you can. Using product attributes or product tags or product meta fields for other forms of merchandising in custom ways across the site, that requires custom development. So that's when you start getting into the area where you go, okay, when this attribute is applied to a product, I want it to display this on a product page, for example. That's when custom development is usually required.
Okay, gotcha. So there's nothing like out of the box that does that. You just worked with a developer of some sort. Okay, cool.
Correct. We had an agency partner, and so it was a several $100,000 development project.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
But it was highly custom. There was a tremendous amount of custom functionality and custom logic that was required for our business, because we were on our third generation of e-commerce website when we had that site built. Our quote unquote MVP, our minimum viable product, was significantly different to a startup because we had been operating online for 15 years. We were to the point where our starting point was much higher than your typical startup starting point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you'd like to register for free for the mentor sessions with Jason Greenwood, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason. See you there.